In this video, I'd like to talk about buy-to-let stress tests. What are they? How do they work? And why are they causing a big headache to a lot of buy-to-let landlords at the moment? So let's take a look. Buy-to-let stress tests. So what is a buy-to-let stress test? Well, first of all, let's compare it to a residential mortgage. With a residential mortgage, when the lender's deciding how much they're going to lend, they'll look at the applicants. Most importantly, they'll look at the applicant's income, how much is coming in, and then they'll also look at the applicant's expenditure. What's coming in, what's going out, whatever's left, they'll apply their income multiples to that amount, and that's how they decide how much applicants can borrow to purchase their property. Nice and simple, because ultimately the applicants are going to be paying the mortgage. So the lender's going to take a close look at the applicant's income. It's pretty obvious. With a buy-to-let, it's a little bit different. Now, obviously, somebody's going to own that buy-to-let property, but the lenders don't want the owner to be paying the mortgage. In essence, they want the property to be paying the mortgage. They want the property to be self-financing. So that property, that buy-to-let property will be generating an income. It will be generating some rent. They want to see that that rent can pay the mortgage, but not just at 100%. They're not happy with that. They want to see an excess. So let's jump into an example so I can explain how that works. So for this example, I've got a client and he has located a property he wants to purchase and use as a buy-to-let. And the purchase price is £300,000. He's been saving hard over the last couple of years and he's got his 25% deposit. He's got his £75,000 to put down. Fantastic. So he requires a mortgage, a buy-to-let mortgage of £225,000. He's done a bit of research and he's looked at similar properties renting in the area, and £1,200 a month rent seems to be realistic. So that's what we're going to base our figures on. So far, so good. He's asked me to source a 2-year fixed rate for him. He feels that rates are a little bit high at the moment. He doesn't want to lock himself into a longer term deal, maybe a 3 or a 5-year fixed. He'd rather just take a 2-year deal. And then hopefully when this 2-year deal comes to an end, rates are a little bit lower and he can move on to a lower rate at that time. So I've sourced him a 2-year fixed rate with a good lender at 6%. Now, rates, there are rates, that's not a million miles away from where rates are at the moment. Some rates are a little bit higher, some rates are a little bit lower if you're prepared to pay a larger lender's arrangement fee. So I'm going to use a figure of 6%. So £225,000 is the mortgage, multiplied by the 6% interest rate, divide that figure by 12 months, and we get a number, £1,125 per month. That will be his mortgage payment on interest only. So £1,200 he's going to charge in rent, deduct the mortgage payment, so that leaves him with a small profit of £75 per month. However, that's not the full story, unfortunately. With buy-to-let properties, there are deductions that we need to take into consideration. So let's have a look at those. So as we know, £1,200 a month is the gross rent for the property. Deductions, well, the first one is tax. If you're receiving, in this example, I'm not using a limited company. I'm just assuming that the client is buying a property and he's going to own the property in his own name, which is still how most people do purchase buy-to-let properties. There are different rules if a property is purchased via a limited company, but I'm not going to go into that today. So for this gentleman, he has to pay tax on that rent. He's a basic rate taxpayer. He pays his tax 20%. So 20% of £1,200, £240 is what he's going to need to pay in tax. He wants to use a letting agent. He's not interested in finding the tenants, doing the background checks and collecting the rent every month. He's decided he'd rather employ the services of a local letting agent, and they're happy to do the job for him, but they're going to charge him. This letting agent are going to charge him 10% of the rent per month plus VAT. That would work out to £144 a month that he has to pay to the letting agent. Repairs and maintenance. You should, if you're a landlord, you should be keeping some of the rent to one side every month to cover the ongoing maintenance costs of the property. As we know, things break, things need repairing. So it's a good idea to put away 10% of the rent every month into some kind of emergency fund. So if something does happen, you've got the money available. So 10% of 1,200, £120. So what does that leave us? So after these deductions, now he's only left with £696. 696, deduct the mortgage payment from that, and he's losing. On this particular property, he's going to be losing £429 a month. Now, going back a year or two, this might not have been such a problem. You know, £429 a month loss, you know, we're looking at just over £5,000 per year. But going back a year or two, properties were increasing at 8 to 10% per month in value. So if you own a £300,000 property and it increases that year by 10%, well, that's £30,000. £30,000 minus the £5,000 loss, you're still up £25,000 on the deal. So not a problem. However, that's not happening at the moment. As well as everything else, property prices in most areas are no longer increasing. And in fact, they're actually on the way back down. So are we going to have a market crash? Possibly. Some people are predicting that. How much properties will fall over the next 6 to 12 months? We don't know yet. Could be 5 to 10%. I think that would be a realistic figure. There's some people out there, the doom and gloomers, that think, no, we could have a proper market crash here where property prices could easily fall from 20 to 30%. Let's see. But basically, the important thing is they're not increasing. For this example, they're not increasing at 5 or 10% a year anymore. So, armed with this information, this client would still like to proceed. He still wants to move forward with the property if we can get him a mortgage lender that will give him the £225,000. Okay, great. Now we have to go to the lender's stress test and see if we can even get the money. So let's have a look at that. For the stress test, I'm going to use BM Solutions. You might know them as Birmingham Midshires. For no particular reason, just that BM Solutions are a very, very large buy-to-let lender, and certainly one of the best buy-to-let lenders. So I'm not picking on them. It's just that I like to use them a lot. So I'll just use theirs. And their stress test is very, very similar to what the other lenders will also stress the rate at as well. So if we go down to their mortgage calculator, and there's two parts to the stress test we need to consider. Number one, which rate is the client going to take? Well, our client's looking at a 2-year fixed rate. And it says here, if it's a 2-year fixed rate, you need to use either a figure of 6% or the pay rate if it's higher than 6%. So the number you use is whichever of these is the highest. Well, in our example, the rate is 6% anyway, so it makes no difference. So take the rate of 6% and then add 2% to that. So that will give us a rate of 8%. That's the figure we need to use in the stress test. So that's part one. And then part two is about tax. What tax band is the applicant in? Well, as we know, our applicant is a basic rate taxpayer. So we need to use a multiplier of 125%. If he was a high rate taxpayer, we'd need to use 145%. But for our example, it's 125. So we're going to use a figure of 8% and a multiplier of 125%. So now let's just jump back into our example and let's see if we can get this £225,000 buy-to-let mortgage that our client needs. So 6% plus the 2%, as we know, we need to be working with a figure of 8%. So £225,000 multiplied by 8%, that gives us a figure of 18,000. We take the 18,000, and if you remember, we had to multiply that by 125% because he's a basic rate taxpayer. 18K times 125% divided by 12 months, and that will give us the amount of rent that we need, which in this instance, it's £1,875 per month. Now, the client's already established that he can probably get £1,200 for that. And what will happen if we did submit an application with this lender, they're going to want to do a mortgage valuation. They'll instruct a local surveyor to go out to the property and to establish a couple of things. Number one, is it worth £300,000? And something else that the surveyor will be doing with a buy-to-let application, they'll be carrying out a rental assessment, and they'll do similar to what the client did. They'll look at what similar properties are renting for in the area at the moment, and they'll probably arrive at the same figure of £1,200. So even if we submitted this application with the lender, it would probably be a waste of time, because once that rental assessment came back from the surveyor, the lender would say, sorry, we can't lend you 225. That property does not achieve enough rent. So this is the problem that landlords are having at the moment, whether they're purchasing a property, as in this example, or if they want to remortgage one of their existing properties. The numbers in this example, they work exactly the same if you were looking to remortgage a property. Instead of a 25% deposit, just change that to maybe the property has 25% of equity, and the numbers would all work out the same, and the same similar type of stress test would apply. So there we have it. This is the problem that buy-to-let landlords are having at the moment. Now, having said all that, there are some lenders that will offer something called top slicing. So if it doesn't fit on their stress test, basically there isn't enough rent being charged to cover the mortgage, then some lenders will offer top slicing, which means they'll take the landlord's personal income into consideration. And after the landlord's paid their own mortgage and their bills and loans and their credit cards, etc., if they're comfortable with the amount left over, the disposable income left over after all the landlord's commitments, then they can use that income. And sometimes that can get you over the line and get you the money that you need for the remortgage or the purchase. So not all is lost. So if you are a landlord and you're looking to remortgage one of your properties at the moment and you need a bit of help, or maybe you're looking to buy a property, whether it's a residential property or a buy-to-let property, then please feel free to get in touch. The best way to get hold of me is via our website. Head over to our website, which is themortgagegurus.co.uk/mortgage-help. Don't worry, I've left a link in the description below. Head over to our homepage. 2 ways you can get in touch. Either hit the call me back button and just give us a day and a time that you'd like us to call and what you'd like us to call you about. Residential mortgage, buy-to-let, protection, buildings and contents, and then just leave your name and number and we'll give you a call back to discuss whatever it is you'd like to discuss. Alternatively, and maybe this is even a better way, click on this button here, and this way you just give us a few details about what you'd like to discuss. So, for example, is it about a purchase or a remortgage? Tell us why you want to remortgage in this example. Is it for the buy-to-let? Is it a property that you live in? Flat, house? Give us a few basic details about your inquiry. That way, when we do give you a call, we've got a bit of information, we can be prepared, and we might have the answers ready to give you straight away, rather than learning on the fly. So 2 ways to get in touch. We'd love to help you. As I said, whatever you might need, residential or buy-to-let. And the last thing before you go, if you could do me a massive favor and like and subscribe, that would be fantastic. This is the first video I've made. So I do intend to maybe make 1 or 2 videos a week. So if you do subscribe, hopefully over time, my presenting skills and my editing skills will improve. So anyway, thanks for watching.